Dark psychology thrives where we ignore our own shadows. Motivation begins with self-awareness. Recognizing manipulative tendencies within ourselves and others allows us to reclaim control over our decisions. Every choice made consciously chips away at external influence. You cannot control what others do, but you can master your own responses, turning subtle manipulation into a source of self-growth and resilience. Fear often drives human behavior more than logic. Understanding this allows you to act deliberately while others react impulsively. Motivation comes from transforming fear into insight. When anxiety and doubt appear, pause and observe, rather than submit. Awareness of emotional triggers equips you to navigate social landscapes with clarity, transforming dark psychological influence into personal strength. Power plays and hidden agendas are common, yet you cannot defeat what you do not understand. Studying the mechanisms of influence builds mental armor. Motivation arises when you realize that knowledge of human behavior is a tool. With it, you anticipate manipulation, assert boundaries, and act decisively, even in the most psychologically complex interactions. Self-mastery is a shield and a weapon alike. Envy and comparison often erode focus. Dark psychology exploits the tendency to measure ourselves against others. Motivation comes from redefining benchmarks internally. Your value is determined by growth, not external approval. Observing envy in yourself and others clarifies your priorities, allowing you to stay committed to meaningful goals while avoiding the psychological traps that weaken resolve. Subtle persuasion can feel invisible until it shapes decisions. Motivation arises when you recognize how everyday choices are influenced by unseen forces. Small actions, like asserting preferences, questioning assumptions, or pausing before reacting, accumulate into psychological independence. Mastery over subtle influence is not about controlling others, but about reclaiming your own mental sovereignty. Guilt is often weaponized to manipulate behavior. Recognizing this is empowering. Motivation comes from separating responsibility from emotional coercion. By acting on principles rather than guilt, you reclaim freedom over decisions. Every time you respond thoughtfully rather than reactively, you strengthen psychological resilience, making yourself immune to manipulative tactics that exploit conscience. Deception is part of human interaction. Motivation arises when you accept that some lies are inevitable, yet truth can guide you. Observing inconsistencies, listening carefully, and questioning narratives sharpen intuition. Each act of discernment builds confidence, transforming uncertainty into empowerment, and teaching you that clarity of perception is the ultimate shield against psychological shadows. Manipulative charm can mask harmful intent. Motivation grows when you see beyond surface-level charisma. Learning to value actions over words allows you to make informed choices. Every encounter becomes a lesson in discernment, helping you identify authenticity versus performance. Mastering this skill strengthens social judgment, empowering you to navigate complex relationships with calm authority. Anger often blinds perception, yet it can be a compass if used wisely. Motivation comes from channeling emotional intensity into deliberate action rather than reaction. When confronted with provocation, pausing to analyze rather than respond immediately transforms anger from a psychological trap into a source of insight and energy, turning potential manipulation into self-driven momentum. Isolation is both a tactic and a trap. Motivation is born when you recognize the value of connection balanced with independence. Observing patterns of exclusion, whether socially or professionally, teaches resilience. Each step taken towards self-reliance while maintaining meaningful bonds strengthens character, showing that psychological endurance is built in the tension between solitude and engagement. Manipulation often hides in praise. Motivation emerges when you learn to separate flattery from intention. Not every compliment is genuine, yet each interaction is an opportunity to strengthen self-awareness. By valuing substance over superficial charm, you build inner confidence, allowing decisions to be guided by principle rather than influence, and transform social complexity into personal mastery. Projection is a psychological trap where others' insecurities are cast onto you. Motivation comes from recognizing when judgments are reflections of someone else's mind. By refusing to internalize external negativity, you retain control over emotions and decisions. Each time you respond with clarity instead of defensiveness, you fortify your mental independence and resilience against subtle psychological manipulation. Fear of missing out is a tool often exploited by external influence. Motivation is born when you define your own priorities instead of chasing every trend or expectation. Awareness of psychological triggers allows you to act intentionally, making choices that align with long-term growth. Every conscious decision reinforces autonomy, teaching that real power comes from internal alignment rather than external pressure. Gaslighting erodes confidence subtly, yet knowledge is defense. Motivation arises when you trust observation and evidence over doubts sown by others. Each verified fact and self-reflective insight strengthens mental clarity. By documenting, questioning, and validating experiences, you convert potential confusion into empowerment, transforming psychological manipulation into a lesson in vigilance and self-reliance. Control often masquerades as guidance. Motivation comes from discerning direction from domination. When you recognize patterns of influence, you can choose engagement or withdrawal intentionally. Every situation becomes a chance to assert boundaries, build courage, and strengthen decision-making. True growth occurs when your actions reflect conscious choice, not reaction to hidden psychological pressure. Hidden agendas often operate in silence, yet awareness is your weapon. Motivation grows when you learn to read between the lines, noticing patterns that reveal intent. By observing actions more than words, you protect yourself from subtle manipulation. Each insight strengthens judgment and confidence, transforming potential psychological traps into opportunities for self-mastery and personal empowerment. Silent criticism can chip away at confidence without you noticing. Motivation comes from valuing your own perception over whispered judgments. By trusting your instincts and affirming your self-worth, you prevent external negativity from dictating actions. Every time you act grounded in principle rather than reaction, you reinforce mental resilience and claim control over your psychological environment. Charm can disguise coercion, but motivation arises when you prioritize clarity over allure. Observing patterns, asking questions, and setting limits allow you to see the difference between influence and manipulation. Each encounter becomes a training ground for self-discipline, turning social complexity into a source of strategic power and teaching the importance of internal strength over external appearances. Emotional exploitation thrives where boundaries are weak. Motivation is born when you learn to define, communicate, and defend personal limits. Awareness of subtle pressure lets you act intentionally instead of reactively. Each assertion of autonomy strengthens confidence and reduces susceptibility to manipulation, proving that the most effective psychological defense is a consistent practice of self-respect and mindful engagement. Subtle intimidation can paralyze thought, yet courage begins in recognition. Motivation comes from facing discomfort rather than avoiding it. By observing tactics, analyzing reactions, and choosing deliberate responses, you transform fear into a source of insight. Every small victory over psychological pressure strengthens resilience, showing that mastery over mind and environment is the ultimate empowerment. Manipulators often exploit indecision. Motivation grows when you commit to clarity and deliberate choice. By analyzing options calmly and trusting your judgment, you neutralize influence before it takes hold. Each conscious decision builds confidence and independence, transforming hesitation into empowerment. Mental discipline becomes your strongest defense against psychological tactics designed to confuse or control. Jealousy can drive covert sabotage, yet motivation arises when you focus on your own growth. Observing envy without reacting strengthens perspective and resilience. Each achievement you pursue intentionally, rather than competitively, reinforces personal power. Awareness of psychological undercurrents teaches patience, strategic thinking, and the ability to turn social tension into lessons in self-improvement and long-term mastery. Manipulative narratives often disguise themselves as helpful advice. Motivation comes when you critically evaluate guidance before acting. By questioning assumptions, verifying facts, and trusting intuition, you avoid being subtly controlled. Each moment of discernment reinforces autonomy, transforming external influence into an opportunity to strengthen mental acuity and make decisions rooted in conscious awareness rather than emotional manipulation. Peer pressure subtly alters behavior and limits authenticity. Motivation is found in resisting conformity when it contradicts your values. By asserting independence, you cultivate confidence and clarity. Each refusal to yield to hidden social coercion is a reinforcement of self-mastery. Observing how influence operates allows you to act deliberately, demonstrating that true power emerges from alignment with principles rather than the expectations of others. Secrets and hidden intentions often shape outcomes unseen. Motivation grows when you cultivate curiosity and attention to detail. By noticing discrepancies and patterns in behavior, you gain foresight. Each insight you gather strengthens resilience and strategic thinking. Understanding that human interactions are layered and complex allows you to navigate challenges with clarity, transforming potential psychological manipulation into actionable wisdom and empowerment. Manipulation thrives on distraction. Motivation comes when you train focus and mindfulness. By observing conversations and situations carefully, you notice patterns others overlook. Each act of attention strengthens awareness and prevents subtle influence from shaping your decisions. The more present you are, the more control you reclaim, turning psychological complexity into a tool for growth, resilience, and conscious action in daily life. Fear of rejection is a common lever of control. Motivation arises when you value authenticity over approval. By embracing vulnerability and asserting your true intentions, you reduce the power of judgment. Each courageous step taken in the face of social pressure builds self-confidence and mental independence, showing that liberation from psychological influence begins with trusting your own voice above the whispers of others. Information can be weaponized to mislead or confuse. Motivation emerges when you seek clarity and verify sources. By questioning assumptions and testing narratives, you develop insight that others may lack. Each deliberate investigation into truth strengthens critical thinking and reduces susceptibility to manipulation. Knowledge becomes armor, and discernment transforms every interaction into an opportunity to cultivate self-mastery. Charm and flattery can obscure intent, yet motivation arises when you prioritize observation over impression. By analyzing consistency between words and actions, you distinguish authenticity from performance. Each interaction becomes a chance to refine judgment, sharpen intuition, and strengthen personal boundaries. Psychological awareness empowers you to navigate social complexity confidently while remaining true to your own principles. Emotional appeals often mask hidden agendas. Motivation grows when you evaluate feelings without immediate reaction. By recognizing when emotions are being leveraged, you act intentionally rather than impulsively. Each measured response reinforces self-control and mental resilience, turning potential manipulation into a source of learning. Awareness, patience, and reflection allow you to convert psychological influence into strategic insight and personal empowerment. Deception often hides in small omissions, not blatant lies. Motivation arises when you pay attention to details others ignore. By questioning inconsistencies and trusting your intuition, you protect your decisions from subtle manipulation. Each observation you make strengthens awareness, reinforcing the ability to act independently. Mastering the nuances of behavior transforms hidden influence into lessons in discernment and personal power. Manipulators exploit impatience, encouraging rash decisions. Motivation comes from slowing down and analyzing before acting. By creating space for reflection, you see patterns and intentions clearly. Each pause transforms impulsive reactions into deliberate strategy. Discipline over time builds resilience, teaching that mental strength is not avoiding challenges, but facing them consciously with patience and calculated awareness of human behavior. False narratives can cloud judgment, but motivation arises when you seek perspective. By evaluating multiple angles and questioning assumptions, you regain clarity. Each act of independent analysis strengthens self-reliance and reduces susceptibility to subtle influence. Understanding that perception can be manipulated allows you to act strategically, turning psychological complexity into a source of insight rather than confusion, and reinforcing personal confidence. Emotional manipulation often masquerades as concern. Motivation grows when you recognize intention behind actions. By observing patterns and measuring impact against principles, you maintain autonomy. Each conscious choice reinforces boundaries and self-trust. Psychological awareness transforms potential exploitation into learning. Over time, navigating human complexity becomes a skill that empowers decision-making, fosters resilience, and strengthens mental fortitude. Criticism, when hidden behind politeness, can be weaponized. Motivation comes when you filter feedback objectively. By distinguishing constructive input from veiled manipulation, you retain confidence and direction. Each act of discernment enhances mental independence, turning social pressure into a tool for growth. Understanding the subtle psychology of influence equips you to act deliberately, transform challenge into insight, and reinforce personal and professional boundaries. Authority can manipulate without overt force. Motivation arises when you question assumptions and think independently. By analyzing directions and expectations critically, you avoid blind compliance. Each act of thoughtful judgment strengthens self-reliance and resilience. Understanding power dynamics allows you to navigate hierarchical influence confidently, turning potential psychological control into insight, strategic awareness, and personal empowerment. Manipulation often thrives in silence, using omission and secrecy. Motivation comes from seeking transparency and clarity. By asking questions and observing what is left unsaid, you reduce uncertainty and gain control. Each insight strengthens mental vigilance, turning hidden psychological tactics into opportunities for growth. Awareness becomes a skill, enabling you to respond deliberately rather than reactively, and to protect both decisions and personal integrity. Emotional dependency can be exploited subtly. Motivation arises when you cultivate self-sufficiency and inner confidence. By acknowledging needs without surrendering autonomy, you prevent control from external influence. Each act of self-trust reinforces independence, teaching that real strength is emotional resilience. Understanding these dynamics transforms vulnerability into empowerment, making relationships and interactions tools for growth instead of manipulation. Manipulative praise often encourages overconfidence or complacency. Motivation comes from balancing recognition with critical reflection. By evaluating compliments against actions and results, you retain clarity and avoid subtle influence. Each moment of discernment strengthens judgment and mental independence. Observing these patterns teaches patience and insight, transforming psychological traps into opportunities for strategy and personal development. Fear of conflict is often leveraged to influence behavior. Motivation grows when you embrace assertiveness and communicate honestly. By addressing issues rather than avoiding them, you maintain control and self-respect. Each act of courage reinforces mental resilience, allowing you to navigate tension without compromise. Understanding the role of psychological pressure and decision-making transforms fear into a tool for empowerment and conscious action. Manipulation often hides in repetition, where subtle pressure becomes normalized. Motivation comes from recognizing patterns before they shape your choices. By staying aware of recurring tactics, you act consciously rather than reactively. Each moment of vigilance strengthens autonomy and mental resilience, teaching that consistency in awareness transforms potential psychological control into a source of personal power and strategic foresight. Gossip and rumor can subtly influence perception and behavior. Motivation arises when you verify information independently and resist assumptions. By filtering truth from noise, you retain clarity and confidence. Each conscious decision to act on evidence rather than speculation reinforces judgment and personal strength. Understanding the psychology of rumor allows you to navigate social networks deliberately, turning manipulation into insight and self-mastery. Scarcity is often used as a lever of influence, creating urgency and fear. Motivation comes from patience and informed decision-making. By evaluating the actual value of opportunities and resisting pressure, you reclaim control over choices. Each moment of thoughtful consideration strengthens mental resilience. Awareness of scarcity tactics teaches that psychological influence can be countered through clarity, discipline, and deliberate strategic action. Invisibility is a tool for manipulation, as unnoticed actions shape outcomes. Motivation arises when you observe and analyze quietly, learning from subtle cues. By noticing what others overlook, you gain strategic advantage. Each observation builds awareness, reinforcing independence and resilience. Understanding hidden dynamics transforms uncertainty into opportunity, allowing you to navigate human behavior consciously and strengthen psychological intelligence over time. Manipulative narratives often exploit empathy, creating guilt or obligation. Motivation grows when you separate compassion from control. By responding thoughtfully and setting clear boundaries, you retain autonomy while maintaining ethical engagement. Each act of balanced response strengthens emotional intelligence, transforming potential exploitation into insight. Awareness of empathy-based influence enables deliberate action, turning psychological challenges into personal growth and empowerment. Seduction of authority often masks hidden motives. Motivation comes when you evaluate advice critically rather than follow blindly. By questioning credentials, intentions, and consistency, you maintain independence. Each thoughtful assessment reinforces confidence and mental resilience. Recognizing subtle influence allows you to act strategically, turning potential manipulation into awareness, insight, and personal empowerment. Blame shifting can erode self-confidence if unnoticed. Motivation arises when you take responsibility for what you control while refusing external guilt. By discerning between constructive critique and manipulative accusation, you strengthen autonomy. Each act of self-accountability builds mental fortitude, allowing you to navigate psychological pressure without surrendering clarity, confidence, or your ability to act deliberately. Subtle intimidation works by creating doubt and hesitation. Motivation comes from cultivating courage and decisiveness. By confronting challenges with awareness and preparation, you neutralize fear tactics. Each intentional action reinforces personal strength, teaching that psychological pressure can be converted into learning and strategy. Awareness transforms intimidation from a trap into a tool for mental resilience and self-mastery. Manipulation often thrives in secrecy, exploiting lack of information. Motivation arises when you seek knowledge and transparency. By observing patterns, asking questions, and connecting dots, you gain foresight. Each insight strengthens mental clarity and strategic thinking. Understanding hidden dynamics empowers you to act intentionally, turning potential psychological traps into opportunities for growth, awareness, and control over your environment. As the journey through dark psychology concludes, motivation is found in conscious mastery over self and perception. Awareness, reflection, and deliberate action transform influence into insight. Every challenge encountered becomes a lesson in resilience and personal empowerment. By applying these principles daily, you cultivate mental strength and clarity. Subscribe to stay inspired, learn strategic awareness, and navigate the complexities of human behavior with confidence.